Okay, we are now streaming this class. We have people that are going to be watching us back in South St. Paul. So I'm streaming this so that they can watch it. I'm live. How many you got? All right, so I'm just waiting for Josh at his end. Josh, if you can hear me, let me know via text that you're up and running. The phone number for those of you in South St. Paul to call if you have questions. That number up. So that's 715-245-5665. 715-245-5665 is the number you call. I've got the phone right here, and we'll pick it up and answer any questions you might have. How was lunch? What'd you have? Turkey? Okay. All right. I see there's one tuna left there. All right. So again, Josh, if you're getting me there in South St. Paul, let me know, please, so I can start. Hold off until I hear from you. Yeah, we're on. Okay, all right. Welcome to those of you in South St. Paul. I'm Bill Collins, the owner of the school. We're talking about preparing for your CDL permit test. Now, you should have been given a green booklet. If you would open that up, I would like to talk to you first off about the insert here. Okay, this information that's in the inside of your booklet here. What we're going to do first off is we're going to go over the mechanics of obtaining the permit. Okay. To get a permit, first of all, you have to have a regular Class D license or lower grade. One second, I got to get something opened up here in my file. There we go. That's what I want. And then the other thing that you need in order to get a permit is that you need a certified birth certificate or a valid passport. Now, what's a certified birth certificate? Anybody know? It has a little stamp on it, a little embossed stamp, okay? These guys are so anal at the Department of Driver and Vehicle Services that they will not accept an original birth certificate with your little baby feet on it. Nope, Social Security card doesn't cut it either, okay? It's got to be either a certified birth certificate or a valid passport. If you were not born in the U.S., the second page here has a bunch of information about the documents you would need in order to get a permit, okay? All right. Now, there's a federal rule that says anything on any one of these tests has to be in the manual. So the good news is we have a very clear source of information in order to pass this test properly, all right? And that is the manual. They're not allowed to have any test questions that aren't in the manual. So that makes this very transparent, very easy to hone in and figure out what the correct answers are, right? Now, what we've given you today with this green book, we have the chapters in here that you need to study for a Class A or Class B permit test. For Class A, you need to study sections 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. For Class B, you study 1, 2, 3, and 5. So that's all contained there in that green booklet, right? Now, this manual is also available online. You can access the manual online through our website. Go to interstatedriving.com and you would be able to get on the website. Hang on a second. I want to open up another file here. There we go. So you guys in South St. Paul may not be able to see this as I put it on the screen, but what I'm doing is I'm going to our website, and what you do is you go to resources on our website. Let me switch the camera around so I can show you this at home, or I mean, excuse me, in South St. Paul. So you go to our website, you click on resources right here, and then over here on the left, you'll see the Minnesota CDL right there, okay? And that takes you to the Minnesota Commercial Driver's Manual. Now, there's two things I like about this manual. One thing I like is I like the search engine, the way the search engine works. If you open up a search box, Control F will do that. You can search for exactly what you're looking for. So let's say we're looking for slack adjusters, okay? So this will find me only slack adjusters, only in the plural sense. No deviation of that. Now, some search engines, you type in slack adjusters, and you're going to find just the word slack or even the word just. But the way this works, it'll hone in on exactly what it is that you're talking about, okay? The other thing I like about the Minnesota manual is that you can do this, the online version, okay? Now I can read the darn thing, okay? So I like being able to zoom in on it. So I really like the online version of this thing. Now, the manual is also available as an audio file. Each of these sections that you need to study are in the state website here. That's mindriveinfo.org I'm going to go to here. Go down here to more documents. There's the Minnesota manual that we were just looking at right there. But I'm going to go down here. Each of the sections that I'm telling you that you have to study for the permit test are available as an audio file. So here, section 6.
Section 6, combination vehicles. This section covers driving combinations.
So notice this is 43 minutes, okay? The air brakes is
Section 5.
42 minutes. So that's an hour and a half between those two. Section 1 is another 40 minutes, so that's 2 hours and 15 minutes. Section 3 is another 13 minutes, that's about 2.5 hours. Now look at section 2 here. I like watching the expression on people's faces when they see that it's 3 hours and 15 minutes. It's a total of over 6 hours, people.
That's popcorn?
So this is a considerable amount of time that you're going to spend working on this material. Now, the truth be known, how many people do you suppose spend the 6 hours to read this thing? Not a lot, okay? But the audio file, again, the audio file is reading you this information.
Section 2, driving safely. This section covers vehicle inspection.
So it's reading you the manual. And I'm a strong believer in the power of audio files. As those of you who have been in class this morning know, I believe that they are very powerful tools that can assist you in a lot of ways. And we just lost power. Hang on a second. Are we still broadcasting? It looks like we are. Okay. No, it froze. Let's see what just happened here.
Yes.
Hey, I just had a power surge here. Would you check to see if I'm still broadcasting?
Yes, I will. Yep, you're up.
Okay, all right. Excellent. All right, it doesn't show that it's working on this end, but as long as it's working on that end, we're good, I guess. All right, thank you.
Everything looks good over here.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay. So use the audio file. I think it's a very powerful learning tool. Read the manual. You're going to spend some time doing this, okay? Now, the other thing that I want to point out on the handout here is the practice test website I'm recommending is cdltest.co. Now, this is the website that is by far the most accurate one that I have found and that I'm recommending. There are other websites out there that are not accurate to the Minnesota test. And I have had literally over the years, hundreds of people who have come to me and said, I don't understand. I go to the practice website, I pass the practice test, but then when I take the real one, I fail it. What the heck's going on? Well, if the practice test isn't accurate, you're wasting your time. And part of what you need to understand is there is misinformation on the internet. As an example, dmb.org is not a government website. I've had people go to dmb.org and tell me, yeah, I went to the Minnesota site. No, you didn't. Well, yeah, I did. No, you didn't. Yeah, I did. I went to dmb.org and I went to Minnesota. That's not the Minnesota website. That is a private organization that was smart enough to grab a website address to give you the illusion you had a government website. And then they try to sell you stuff. Pretty smart, huh? Okay? So, the practice test website that we are recommending is cdltest.co, not anything else. Now, please check your book. Is that what it's telling you in your handout? cdltest.co?
Yeah. I've seen on there.
Yep.
There's a few questions that are kind of screwy on there.
There's a couple that are a little screwy. I'll grant you that. But 97% of them are dead on. Okay? It's not perfect. And incidentally, it would be illegal or prohibited by rule anyway for me to duplicate a state test. So I can't do what cdltest.co does. I'm not allowed to do that. The state wants me to help you in a very limited fashion. Okay? All right, continuing with the handout. Only one permit test on any one subject is allowed per day. Your first and second attempt is free. If you fail 2 tests on any one subject, subsequent tests from the third on cost you $10 each time. All right?
Does that mean like say for combinations, do you take you can take that like another time without paying?
You can take combinations twice without paying.
Okay.
The third time on combinations, $10. Okay? All right. Now, those of you here, you all have Minnesota licenses? Okay? Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. If anybody back there in South St. Paul has a Wisconsin license or whatever, the testing over Wisconsin's a little different. They don't charge for any test, no matter how many you take, but they limit it to 5. In Minnesota, they'll let you take 100 tests. They don't care. They just keep collecting the $10. But in Wisconsin, every test is free, but there's a limit of 5. If you fail 5 tests, then you have to wait a year before you're allowed to test again. Okay? All right. The Minnesota test is available on paper or with a computer. Most exam stations will require you to take the first test on the computer, and the computers have headphones that you can listen to reading you the question. Now, this is kind of interesting. I don't like using the audio headphones when taking a test. The reason I don't like it is when I take a test, I have to be very cautious about skipping information in my head. When I get a question, I got to stop and really pick it apart. And part of the reason for that is whoever wrote this test, they were intentionally trying to get you to get a wrong answer. You don't write a test that's easy, because then everybody passes it. If everybody passes the test, why would you need the test? I mean, that's part of the logic here is that if the test is too easy, everybody passes. So if everybody passes, it's too easy, it's no good. You got to make it tougher. You can see the logic of that. And so they write questions in such a way. See, and if this were up to me, I'd get away with all these multiple choice and true-false questions. I'd ask simple questions that you have to write down an answer, like, how far away are you supposed to park from a stop sign to be legally parked? Everybody know? 30 feet. How far away are you supposed to be from a railroad crossing and park legally? 50 feet. How far away from a fire hydrant? 10 feet. So I'd ask questions like that. I wouldn't ask multiple guess, multiple choice, true, false, with vague, ambiguous. Is it all the above? Is it none of the above? To heck with that. I just ask you a question and you tell me the answer. But see, my way is too time consuming, thus too expensive, and from a government perspective, prohibitive. So anyway, so the questions are written in kind of a sneaky way. The proper tread depth for tires other than front tires is. Now, why didn't you just ask me what the proper tread depth is for rear tires? Why did you have to say other than front tires? See, that was an attempt to confuse me, and the headphones don't help me with that. So what I got to do when I get a question, I got to kind of take a step back and look at it and sort of pick it apart. Well, what are they asking me? And the questions that really befuddle me are, which one of the following is the wrong answer? Well, wait a minute. How do you pass a test with the correct answer? So see how that's, which one of these statements is false? When you take a test, aren't you looking for true statements? So that really messes me up. Which one is false? Huh? What? So I'm supposed to find the bad one and the bad one's the correct one? How does the bad answer become the good answer? See how that confuses my little brain here? Maybe y'all don't have trouble with that, but I do.
You misread one word.
Yeah, if you miss one word. Exactly. Yep, it spins you around. It's a perfect way of putting it. Exactly. So that's why I don't like the headphones. Now, what I prefer personally is the paper version. Now, as it says on my handout, the test is available on paper or with a computer. That's exactly what it says in the manual. Verbatim. That's exactly what it says. The test is available on paper or with a computer. Now, if you go to one of the larger exam stations in the metro area, walk in there for your first test, they'll do everything they can to force you to take the test on a computer. Now, I'm telling you that they don't have the right to do that. Why not? The silly thing called the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Okay? The Bill of Rights, those are amendments to the Constitution. So you have a constitutional right to be treated equally under the law. Constitutional right to be treated equally. And what's interesting is there are 92 places in the state of Minnesota to take these tests. The majority of these exam stations are only open one day a week. They're out in the smaller communities. They don't have computers. So if you go to Red Wing, if you go to Stillwater, an exam station that's open 1 day a week, how would you take the test? On paper. They don't have a computer. They only have the paper. Now, if you go to one of those exam stations and that's all they have, well, that's all they have. They don't have a computer, and they don't have an obligation to ship in a computer just for you. But the exam stations that have both can't legally force you to take it on a computer if you want to take it on paper, because the Constitution guarantees you equal treatment under the law. So the guy in Red Wing is taking it for the first time on paper. You have every right to take it on paper the first time. So if you want to take it on paper, now here's what I believe the advantage of taking it on paper is. Two things. First off, I can skip questions. The computerized test does not allow you to skip questions. I can't tell you how many times, the way my little brain works, I get stumped about something, and then 5 minutes later I remember. And when taking a test, there might be a question that I'm puzzled by. And so let's say question number 7, I can't figure it out. But question number 23 jogs my memory what the correct answer is, number 7. I do that kind of stuff all the time. So it would be highly advantageous for me to take it on paper versus the computer. Secondly, when you take it on the computer, it scores your question, answer, your response immediately. So if you get something wrong, it tells you right then. Well, that flusters me. I'm like, oh, that's 1. Oh, that's 2. I start getting worried because I'm counting up what I got wrong. And I'm better off, it's one of those ignorance is bliss routines. I'm better off not knowing, okay? And then another advantage that I should mention, and this is huge too, I think, really. So when you're taking a computer test, the general knowledge is 50 questions. You got to get 80% correct. So that means you got to get 42 correct. If you get 9 wrong, you fail the test. All right? So let's say you go there and you're kind of having a bad hair day. In my case, it'd be a bad scalp day. But if you're having a bad day, and let's say you get 10 wrong out of the, or 9 wrong out of the first 10, the computer shuts off. So you've seen 10 questions. If you take the paper one, how many questions do you see? All 50 questions. That would be kind of helpful, wouldn't it? If you fail a thing, to see all the questions. And then with the computer, they jumble up the questions every time the computer gives you a test. On the paper, there's 2 versions. You only got 2 different versions. That's it. So if you're failing the test more than twice, at least with the paper version, you'll see the exact same thing again without being all jumbled up. I think there's a huge advantage to taking it on paper. If you want to take it on paper, you have 2 choices. You can go to one of the exam stations that only has the test on paper, or you can go to an exam station that has the computers, walk in there and say, I'd like to take my test. They'll say, well, walk over here to machine number 6. And then you say, I'd like to take it on paper. And then they'll say, well, no, you got to take it on the computer first. And then I would suggest very politely, very professionally, you say, well, your manual says that I have that option of taking it on paper. No, you have to take it on the computer. And then I'd say, well, may I speak to a supervisor about this, please? And they will provide a supervisor. It might take 45 minutes. I think these supervisors, when they're told that there's someone that wants to speak to them, they intentionally set a timer and make you wait for 45 minutes. But eventually a supervisor is going to come out, and they're going to be kind of snotty about it, saying, no, we have this policy, you got to take it on the computer. And then I would say to them, all right, respectfully, let me bring this to your attention. First of all, there's 92 places in the state of Minnesota to take this test, right? And the supervisor may very well, well, I'm not sure. Well, it's on your website. Would you like me to show you? We can go online right now and I'll show you. There are 92 places to take this test in Minnesota. And then let me assure you of this, not all of them have the computers. Well, I don't know that that's true. Well, tell you what, Miss Supervisor, why don't you call downtown and ask? I'll wait. I've got time. If you want to verify what I'm telling you is true, I'd be more than happy to wait while you verify it, because it is true. And the bottom line, Mr. or Miss Supervisor, is the United States Constitution guarantees me equal treatment under the law. You are not allowed to treat me different than someone that lives in Red Wing. The person in Red Wing can take this on paper. I can take it on paper. And there's no debating that. This is a constitutional right that I have. And I'd like to exercise that right and be allowed to take this on paper. At that point, the supervisor is probably going to say to you, are you one of those people that went to interstate truck driving school? All right, call Dingham. Well, here's your test. All right, go take it. And they'll give it to you. They will. I promise you, they'll give it to you. Be courteous. Be calm. Don't raise your voice. Be professional. And they'll give it to you. They will. Yes.
If you did do on paper, how long would it take to solve?
Right away. But see, that's why they don't want to do that, because they have to take the, the 40 or 50 seconds, oh God, almost a minute of their time to correct it for you. Because with the computer, all they do is hit a keystroke. So that's easier. That's why they want to give it to you on the computer, because it's less work for them. Okay? It's less work for them. That's the only reason they want to do it on the computer. But you have a constitutional right. Do you want to pull that chair out of the way there, please? Somebody stuffed that chair. Pull that chair out of there. Somebody decided to park it there. All right. So that's my recommendation. Next line on your handout list. You must arrive at least an hour before the exam station, before they close. Now, there's no time limit to the test. No time limit. The only time limit is set by their hours of operation. So when they close, they'll kick you out the door. Those 92 exam stations I told you about, you can find the locations at mindriveinfo.org. Next line, you can take one subject at a time if that works best for you. So you could go in on one day and take one test, go back another day, take another test. That's fine. You could even split it up in the day. So you could go in at 8:30, take your general knowledge test, pass that, go up to the counter, I'll be back, go out in the parking lot, open your book, put on the audio file, study the section on air brakes, go back in there and take the air brake test. Pass that, I'll be back, go back out in the parking lot, open up your green book, turn on the audio file for the air brake section or the combination section, and go back in later and take that. You're allowed to do that. Now, this brings to mind how important it is that you document any interaction you have with the Minnesota Department of Public Safety. So if you do what I'm suggesting, do not walk out of that building without some sort of proof in a document form that you passed the test. Now, conceivably, you go, you take the general knowledge test, you go up the counter, I'll come back a little bit for the next one, and a clerk may very well say to you, well, okay, don't worry about it, I got your paperwork. Well, don't I need a copy? No, I'll be here, don't worry about it, I got you covered, just go ahead. Come back and see me when you're ready. So you go out in the parking lot, 10 minutes later, this clerk gets a call from his or her daycare center, his or her kid is sick. Where's that examiner going? Home. Well, to daycare to pick up the kid, because daycare is kicking it out, right? So now you walk back in 15 minutes after that. Yeah, I was here a little earlier. I took my general knowledge and passed it. I don't see the lady that got my stuff, but she said she'd hold on to it for me. Oh, we can't find your paperwork. Well, I was here an hour ago and I passed the test. You know what they'd say to you? Well, if you pass the test once, you can do it again. Go over to machine number 6. Okay? So all you do, if the examiner says, I'll hold on to your paperwork, just say, may I take a picture of it, please? You have a right to do that. You have a right to document your success. So now you've got proof, don't you? Right? Now, going forward, keep Every single piece of paper these people give you, this is really important. This agency messes up people's licenses and permits constantly. They are so incompetent down there, okay? It's frustrating, it's unbelievable. It's a culture of incompetence at the Driver and Vehicle Services Division. And I'm saying this live on YouTube. They could be watching me downtown right now, gritting their teeth, okay? What's happening is that we have students getting Class B licenses when they took a Class A test. We have people getting Class A licenses when they took a B test. We have people getting restrictions to automatics when they tested in manuals. We're getting people that don't have a restriction when they did test in automatics. This document is really important to you, not only in terms of driving and commercial driving, but even like getting on an airplane. Get this, we had a student recently, comes in, taking permit class just like you all are, goes off the next day to take the permit test, comes back and tells us, yeah, they won't give him his permit because the city where he lives is misspelled on his license. They made him reapply for a new license with the corrected spelling and won't issue the permit until the corrected license comes in the mail. The name Edina was misspelled on his license. It's like, are you kidding me? Now, my point is, he should have looked at that license when he got it in the mail and made sure there were no errors in it and corrected it immediately rather than waiting to some time later, okay? When you get your license in the mail, look at it, both sides. The restrictions will be on the back, okay? On the front, it'll tell you what class license you have, but on the back is where any restrictions and endorsements are. Look at it very carefully. We've had customers that weren't allowed to drive vehicles with air brakes. They tested with air brakes. They had the permit with air brakes. They drove a truck with air brakes for their test. But the person at the Department of Public Safety, Driver and Vehicle Service Division, messed up. So now they got a restriction here. And we've had customers, one guy drove for 1.5 years before he got caught at a scale. And the trooper says, son, you can't drive that truck. Excuse me? You can't drive that truck. Look right here, sir. No air brakes. You're not allowed to drive a vehicle with air brakes. That there big rig's got air brakes. You can't drive that thing. Sir, I've been driving it for 1.5 years. Well, then you've been driving illegal for 1.5 years there, young man. And they shut him down. He was not allowed to continue that trip. Okay? The worst one that we experienced, we had a student took a test a couple years ago on June 21st at 12:30 in the afternoon at the Egan exam station. And he didn't have his birth certificate with him after he passed the test to go in and convert it to a license. And so what he did is the next day he went to Chaska with the paperwork, paid for the application to get his Class A license. A month later, end of July, he gets a letter from the state of Minnesota that says there's no record of his road test. You've applied for a license, but there's no record of your road test. You must take a road test successfully and pass it before you're allowed to get a Class A license. Go get a road test. It's like, you got to be kidding. He goes to Chaska. He goes, look at this letter. They look him up on the computer. Yep, no road test. Got to take a road test. I took a road test at Egan on June 21st at 12:30 in the afternoon. Well, go to Egan then. They're the ones that messed up. So he goes to Egan. Look at this letter. Yep, no road test. I was here June 21st at 12:30. No, we got no record of you being here June 21st at 12:30. So he drives to our office, comes in, lets us know what's going on. Can you help me, he says. Well, part of the problem here was he did not have that piece of paper that said he passed the test. He didn't have that. Now, he either lost it or they kept it at the Chaska exam station when he turned in his permit to get his license, okay? So he didn't have a piece of paper that said he passed the test. So he asked us, can you help me? Now, the interesting thing is, we have dash cameras in all of our trucks, okay? And those dash cameras are recording what goes on in those trucks during the test, during the driving lessons. They're pointed out, they're pointed in. So we caught this whole conversation between the examiner and our customer. Pulls in at the end of the test, congratulations, you passed your test. Oh, thank you, here's your paperwork, you can go in and get your license. Oh, geez, I didn't bring my certified birth certificate with me, do I have to have that? Yeah, you have to do that. Well, can I do this later? Sure, you can do it later. Well, I was thinking of going to Chaska because I live out there, can I do that? Sure, we got this whole conversation on tape, okay? So Pat, my training director, was able to find that recording in a matter of minutes. We played it on a monitor, and I had this young man videotape it with his phone. I said, go back to the exam station and show him the video. So he goes out to Egan, goes in there and says, I got video proof that I passed this test. And they said, hey, Chaska's the one that screwed this up. Go to Chaska. He drives to Chaska. I got video proof that I passed this test. Egan is the one that made this mistake, not us. Go back to Egan. That's their problem, not ours. We did our part. They got to do theirs. He goes to Egan. He's there for the third time in the same day. Okay, would you be mad by now? And get this. I got video proof that I passed this test. You know what they said? We don't care. It ain't in the computer. I ain't even going to look at your video. What do I care about a video? It ain't in our computer. So he calls me from there. So I said, okay, find out who the supervisor is right now. Jessica? Okay. Now tell Jessica that I'm going to do two things. When I get off the phone, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call my attorney. His name's Paul Applebaum. And I'm going to have him call her as soon as I can get a hold of him. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call my friends at KSTP Television. And I'm going to tell them that their agency is refusing to look at a video that proves that you passed your test. And I'm going to ask them to send a TV crew out to the Egan exam station. So I want you to stay there. I'll come out there too. And I'm going to try to get you interviewed for the 5 o'clock news. Now tell Jessica we're going to do that. Okay? So I hang up, call my attorney. Of course, I got to leave him a voicemail. Can never get a hold of him. About the time I get done with that, I get a call back from this young man. He says, oh, they just took care of it. We're all good. That's what I had to threaten them with. And then, oh, gee, magically, now they can solve the problem, okay? You cannot trust these people with these important documents that have an effect on your life. Keep these documents. Take a picture of them. That way, if you inadvertently put a document through the wash and destroy it, you still have a record of it. Get that? Okay? Now that clerk, or that examiner, I should say, that messed up that guy's license way back when, he is still working there, and he's still screwing up people's paperwork. We have had him, at least 3 or 4 of our students since then, he's messed them up too. Not as bad, but messed them up with restrictions and stuff like that. Now, is this guy ever going to get fired? Nope. These are civil service employees. Unless they show up drunk and start shooting people, they don't get fired, okay? So it's really frustrating to deal with such an incompetent agency. These people in Minnesota are just as clueless gets. Don't trust them with your documents, okay? The last sentence on the front page handout, you need to complete a CDL medical self-certification form when you get your permit. Take your handout that I've given you and flip it to the very last page or turn to the very last page, okay? And that is the CDL medical self-certification form, all right? Now you will have to fill out and submit, sign and submit this form when you get your permit. You'll have to do it again when you get your license. You'll have to do it again when you renew, okay? Now, there's been a big change over the years, and about 3 or 4 years ago, regarding the medical card. Now, it used to be that all you had to do was carry a medical card in your wallet. If you had a medical card in your wallet, you were in full compliance with the rules. But here's the deal. Back then, The truck stops sold blank ones of these for $4. How hard was it to have a medical card in your wallet? $4 and a friend with lousy penmanship. Fraudulent? Yes. But were people getting away with it? Yes. So, the feds created a process now where you have to go to a registered provider, a person that can do a medical exam that's on the National DOT registry. You have to go to one of them to do this physical. Incidentally, we do have a registered provider come in on Thursday afternoons into our office there in South St. Paul, and he can do DOT physicals, okay? So you have to go to one of them. When you go to them for a physical, they register your information into a federal database, and then you have to register this with the state of Minnesota. This form, when you have a medical, requires you to tell them when your medical expires. So now the state of Minnesota knows when your medical expires. Now, you can go on the state website and see your public information on your license. My medical expires June of next year. My driver's license does not expire until July of 2023, 3 years after the fact, okay? Now, if my medical expires and I don't renew the certification, actually, I think it's May of next year. If I don't renew the certification, what happens to my CDL? I lose it. I lose my CDL if I don't recertify, okay? Now, here's what's tripping people up. You'll get a letter in the mail 2 months in advance, and it says your medical self-certification is going to expire in 2 months. You need to get a new medical if you wish to maintain your CDL driving privileges. So what happens is people go take the medical, they get the card, but they forget to do this part of it. And you lose your license for that. You can get pulled over, trooper looks you up on the database, no medical. All right, well, along with everything else here, driver, I'm going to give you a ticket for not being certified on the database. But officer, I have the card. I don't care. You're not in the database. But how can you give me a ticket if I have the card? Because you are required to certify this with the state. Okay? You have to do that. If you forget to do that, you're in violation and you lose your license. Now, you have 4 choices here in terms of category. The first 2 are interstate categories. The second 2 are intrastate, category 3 and 4. Intrastates means you're staying within state boundaries. Why would a person be limited to staying within a state boundary? 2 types of people are that limited. First off, under age 21. Anybody under age 21 here? Okay. So you're interstate. Second reason that someone would fit into the intrastate limitation. If you have some sort of physical limitation that does not allow you to pass a federal DOT medical exam. The threshold for the state exam is lower. An example, on the federal side, you have to be able to see 20/40 in both eyes. On the state side, 20/40 in one eye will suffice. Correction allowed. But you can be blind in one eye and still drive a truck in Minnesota. But you can't be blind in one eye and drive a truck crossing the border unless you have a waiver. And to get the waiver, you have to have 3 years experience. So how would a guy blind in one eye get the experience? Drive intrastate for 3 years. And then they can apply for a waiver to drive in interstate, okay? So as long as you don't have any physical limitations or age is not an issue, then you're an interstate, you're a category 1 driver. If you're making money, if you're getting paid by the private sector, then you have to have a physical. That means you're a category 1 driver. Now, category 2 is exempt. Now, who can drive a truck, commercial vehicle, and is exempt from the medical requirements? Well, first off, somebody that's driving a commercial sized motor vehicle for personal use. If I win the lottery tomorrow night, my wife would expect the purchase of a hobby farm complete with horses by noon on Saturday. And then sometime next week, she would expect the purchase of a truck and a trailer capable of hauling 4 horses. So she can take her horse and 3 of her friends' horses, and the 4 of them can go trail riding in different places around the area. Now that truck and trailer will be a Class A vehicle. It will meet the weight criteria to be a Class A vehicle. But she's not using it for a business enterprise. She's not using it to create income. So that's personal use. Then these rules, these commercial rules, don't apply. So she doesn't have to have the medical. She doesn't have to follow the hours of service regulations. She doesn't have to have the truck inspected. Now she has to be very careful. She cannot take any income off that truck. She can't charge her friends gas money. She can't sell hay. She can't do anything to use that truck and trailer in any sort of business enterprise. That being the case, she's category 2, she's exempt, and she's good. Now, where this might come into play with you, let's say for the sake of discussion that you get your license, you get your DOT physical, you go out and get a job, but 2 years from now when your medical is about to expire, you're not working, you're not driving truck anymore, okay? You got a different job, you're not driving truck. So you say to yourself, well, I don't need the medical, I'm not driving truck. Take this form, check category 2, you're exempt now. You're exempt from the medical requirement because you're not getting paid to drive a truck. Send the form in, you get to keep your license. As long as you want, all you gotta do is keep paying for it on renewal. And you can stay in the exempt category forever. Now, 3 years later, you get another job. What do? Go get a physical. Send this back in. You're good. And you can get a physical in a matter of hours. You can go in and apply for a job at 8 in the morning. Yeah, I'm here to apply for the truck driving job. Okay, well, let's see your license. Let's see your medical. Oh, I don't have a medical. Well, go get one. Well, where do I get one? Well, you go on a website to figure out who's close by. You go there, get a medical. Take you 2 hours maybe. Come back. Okay, I'm here to apply for that job now. Got your medical? Yep. Okay. All right. Well, here, fill out the paperwork. It's easy to get a physical as long as you're healthy and can pass the thing. Okay. So you can always go into this exempt status and stay there, and then come back later and up the ante and get the medical so you can get paid to drive truck again. All right. Any questions with that? All right. Okay. So the permit test for a Class A permit, there's 3 knowledge tests: general knowledge, air brakes, and combinations. If you're doing B, there's 2: general knowledge and air brakes. You have to get 80% in order to pass the test. There are 50 questions on general knowledge, 30 questions on air brakes, and 20 questions on combinations. All right. Again, all the information you need to study is in this manual, in this handout. Okay. Now, in order to help you study for the test, I'll show you something here. I'm going to go to the manual. The organization that publishes this is called the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators. And they're doing this under contract to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Now, when the manual originally came out back in the 1980s, they were requiring not only new drivers to take and pass this test, but also existing drivers upon renewal. And a lot of drivers were having a hard time passing this test. So the feds went to to AMBA, the organization that published the manual for them, and said, what can you do to help people? So they can hone in on this thing and get the information they need to be able to pass this test. And what AMA did is they created these test your knowledge boxes in the manual. And you're going to see these test your knowledge sections spread out throughout the manual. The first one is on page 2-8. So if you take the book that we've given you today, it's not numbered 1 through 100. It's numbered by sections. So find section 2 and go to 2-8, and you'll see these questions. Okay? So those of you in South St. Paul can do the same thing there. And what they've done is they've created these test questions to help you hone in on the questions on the test. And what I'm telling you is these are the questions on the test. Now, some of them are obvious. So question number 1 here on this first test your knowledge box, the question is, what's the most important reason for doing a vehicle inspection? Well, that's a no-brainer. What's the answer? Safety, okay? But the next one, what things should you check during a trip? Now, if you haven't read the manual, I'll bet you $100 and I'll give you a 10-to-1 odds that you're not going to get that question correct. That's such a broad, open-ended question. What things should you check during a trip? Anybody want to guess? Nope. Now, what you want to do is you want to go back into that section of the manual and find the correct answer. And I'm going to take a shortcut by using the search engine. So here it is. And this is 2-1-6, so it's back from where the questions are, right at one of the very first pages here. And it says that you should check your instruments. And then it says if you see, hear, smell anything, feel anything that might mean trouble, check it out. So they want you to check your gauges and use your senses. Hang on. So here it is again. During a trip for safety, watch your gauges and use your senses. Look, listen, smell, and feel. That's the correct answer. The next part of this is things to check when you stop. But during the trip, gauges and senses. That's the correct answer. Okay? So what I'm suggesting you do is that you find the correct answer to every single one of these test your knowledge questions in that green book we gave you and highlight it. And now you have the perfect study guide. The third question of test your knowledge on page 2-8, name some key steering system parts. Well, they have a diagram a little ways back in that section that shows you steering system parts right here. So let's see what page. This is on page 2-2. So if you want to find this on page 2-2, it lists steering wheel, tie rod, steering shaft, hydraulic fluid reservoir, gearbox, pitman arm, drag link, steering knuckle, spindle, steering arm, and power steering cylinder. And typically what you're going to get for a correct answer is going to be drag link, pitman arm, gearbox, tie rod, maybe steering shaft. But those are the most important of those steering system components. Okay. Next question on page 2-8. Name some suspension system defects. Well, that's going to include broken, missing, shifted, or loose springs, distorted coil springs, broken spring brackets, leaking shocks, and loose U-bolts, okay? Those would be suspension system defects. Number 5, what 3 kinds of emergency equipment must you have? Anybody know? You have to have your triangles, fire extinguisher, properly mounted, fully charged. No, those are triangles. Triangles and flares are interchangeable. Fuses. Now, that's puzzling to me. You're supposed to have electrical fuses as emergency equipment. Now, if you know anything about electrical stuff, you would know that if you popped a fuse, if you blew a fuse, if you put a new fuse back into that circuit, what happens? You pop it again. Something caused the fuse to blow. Some sort of short circuit, overheating, something. So without solving the problem, having a fuse is of no value to you. Now, if they said you have to carry fuses, electric testing device, ohm meter, a wire stripper, connectors, and tape, then I could see the logic of carrying fuses. But without all that other stuff, a fuse isn't going to do you any good, okay? All of our trucks have fuses in them. Truth is, I'm not really sure if the fuses fit, but they got fuses in them, okay? All right. Well, that's what you're supposed to do. Number 6, what's the minimum tread depth for front tires? 4/32 of an inch. What's the minimum for rear tires? 2/32. Very good. Number 7, name some things you should check on the front of your vehicle during the walk-around inspection. Well, let's see what they say. Okay, let's go back in this section and find out what they say. All right, so walk-around inspection. Go to the front of the vehicle and check that low beams are on and the 4-way flashes are working. So they want you to check your lights. And then look, it says walk around, inspect, check all lights, reflectors, and glass as you go. So that's on the front of the vehicle, okay? So what they're saying is that you should check the lights, right? On the front of the vehicle. So that'd be the correct answer there. All right, so back to our test your knowledge box here. Number 8, what should wheel bearing seals be checked for? Grease leaks, yes, leaking grease. Number 9, how many red reflective triangles are you supposed to have? 3, correct. Number 10, how do you test hydraulic brakes for leaks? How many times? Well, perfect. No, that's absolutely not about. That's exactly what the formula is. Pump the brake pedal 3 times, hold for 5 seconds. It's right here in the manual, right there. I went past it. Test for hydraulic brakes, hydraulic leaks. If the vehicle has hydraulic brakes, pump the brake pedal 3 times, then apply firm pressure to the pedal, hold it for 5 seconds. You've got to remember that formula to get the correct answer. So you would want to highlight that little section of the manual as the study guide, okay? Number 11, why put the starter switch key in your pocket during the pre-trip inspection? That's pretty basic, so that nobody drives off while you're under the vehicle inspecting it, okay? All right. Let's go to the next test your knowledge section. Number 1, why should you back towards the driver's side? Because you can see better, okay? When stopped on a hill, how can you start moving without rolling back? And the manual says use your parking brake. If you have a trailer shuttle brake valve on the dashboard, use that. I don't think either one of those are necessary with today's diesel trucks with all the torque, but that's what the manual says, so that's how you answer it. Number 3, when backing, why is it important to use a helper?
Blind spots.
To avoid blind spots, exactly. Number 4, what's the most important hand signal that you and the helper should agree on? Stop. And incidentally, if you ever lose sight of your helper, what should you do? Stop, get out of the truck, and go find him. Those of you that are here today, I was telling you earlier today that I had worked on some cases as an expert witness for attorneys. One of them was a truck driver backed up and smushed the dock worker between the trailer and the dock. And then, without paying any attention to what he had just done, he jumped out of the seat and went in the back and watched TV. Left this guy back there screaming. He lived. He's pretty messed up. So if you lose sight of anybody that's behind you, you stop, get out, and find them. Number 4, what's the most important hand signal that you and your helper should agree on? Stop. Number 5, what are the 2 special conditions where you should downshift?
Downhill and or into a curve.
Right, going into a curve or going down a hill. Number 6, when should you downshift automatic transmissions? Prior to going down a hill, okay? Now, this manual is rooted in some pretty old technology, and the manual does not recognize that today's automated transmissions will downshift for you. You don't have to do this anymore. Used to, you did, and this manual was written in 1984 originally. It's been modified since and updated, but the original version was back in the middle 1980s. And this is a carry on from those old days. So while we don't have to do this anymore, that would be the correct answer. Number 7, retarders keep you from skidding when the road is slippery. Is that true or false? That is false. The retarder is an engine brake that is slowing down the rear wheels of your truck. If the road is slippery, it will cause a skid. So you should not be using an engine retarder, engine brake, Jake brake. It's all the same thing. Shouldn't be using that when it's slippery. Number 8, when are the 2 ways to know when to shift? Road speed and engine speed are the 2 things, okay? Let's go to the next one here. Here we go. Now, if I hadn't read the manual, for sure I'd get this question wrong. And this is on page 2-16. How far ahead does the manual say you're supposed to look? Anybody know?
Like
12 to 15 seconds ahead, okay? You have to know that number. You know, they're going to make this a multiple guess. They're going to throw different possibilities out there. Right, and that's why I would get it wrong if I hadn't read the manual, because I would always choose the furthest, because that's what I'm doing. I'm looking as far ahead as I possibly can at all times. But the manual says I'm supposed to be between 12 and 15 seconds. Number 2, what are the 2 main things to look for up ahead? Traffic and road conditions. Number 3, what's the most important way to see to the sides and rear of your vehicle? That would be your mirrors. Number 4, what does communicating mean in safe driving? That means you're signaling properly. All right, now we're up to page 2-22. Yep. So first off, how do you find out how many seconds of following distance space you have? When the vehicle in front of you passes an object, you start counting 1001, 1002. And when you get to whatever it is that you started your count at, when that vehicle passed something, that tells you how far back you are. Now, the next question is really important. If you're driving a 30-foot vehicle at 55 miles an hour, how many seconds of following distance should you allow? Anybody know? Anybody know what the formula is? Because there's a formula. And the formula is you should have 1 second of following distance for every 10 feet of vehicle length. So this is a 30-foot vehicle, that should be 3 seconds then. Add an additional second to whatever that number is if you're over 40 miles an hour. So in this case, the correct answer would be 4 seconds. If you're driving a big rig that's 73 feet long, then you should be 7.5 seconds. If over 40, add another one to be 8.5, okay? Now, proper following distance, in my mind, is critical to safe driving. It's also one of the things that people don't adhere to as much as I would like. But I think it's really important to maintain a safe following distance. Number 3, you should decrease your following distance if somebody is following you too closely. True or false? That's false. Number 4, if you swing wide to the left before turning to the right, another driver may try to pass you on the right. True or false? That's true. Number 5, what's a hazard? That's anything up ahead that might cause any sort of conflict, any sort of emergency. Okay? Number 6, why make emergency plans when you see a hazard? So that you have more time to react and minimize the hazard. Next section, this is on this would be 226. What are some tips to follow so you won't become a distracted driver? They really go into the distracted driver thing in this. They go into the next question, how to use in-vehicle communications equipment cautiously. So this is important you understand this. When you drive a commercial motor vehicle, what are you not allowed to do that you can presently in a car? Use your phone in your hand. Now, the phone law in Minnesota changes when? Anybody know? August 1st. August 1st. That's when any of our traffic regulations go into effect that were passed by the legislature. Okay? It's always August 1st. Yep. Not cheap. Well, right now in Minnesota, you cannot text while driving in a car, but you can still hold a cell phone. Okay. Now, in a commercial motor vehicle, federal rule, you cannot text. You cannot read, write, or create any electronic text in a commercial motor vehicle. And you cannot hold a cell phone in your hand. Okay. It's got to be single touch. So you can use Bluetooth or speakerphone in a cradle or headphones. When you use headphones, remember you only use one headphone. You cannot use 2 of them. Okay. I do have a really nice headset that I bought. The reason I like it, it's pretty comfortable. I can hear really well with it because it's a good size headphone. It's just the one side. Got a little microphone that comes around here. Okay. I really like my headphone. It works really, really well. One of the best things about it is the battery lasts forever, just forever. So that's really good. I don't know. I'd have to look. Bought it at a truck stop though. I can look if you want. All right, number 4, what's the difference between aggressive driving and road rage? An aggressive driver is driving in a rude, inconsiderate way, and a road rage driver is driving with the intent to do harm. Number 5, what do you do when confronted with an aggressive driver? Stay away from them. Don't make eye contact with them. Okay? Number 6, what are some things you can do to reduce your stress before or while you drive? Well, one of the things to do while you're driving is to listen to easy listening music. But reducing stress before you drive, getting some rest, all that's discussed in the manual here. Going down to the next test your knowledge section. If I can find it. Here we go. So question number 1. You should use low beams whenever you can. True or false? What do you think? False. They want you to use high beams whenever you can. I actually got that wrong the first time I took it because I am using low beams most of the time. Because most of the time there's somebody coming towards me. It's kind of rare to have nobody coming towards you at night. I mean, I drive all across this country at all hours, and I'm telling you, it's pretty rare to have nobody coming the other way. Number 2, what should you do before you drive if you're drowsy? Take a nap, yep. Number 3, what effects can wet brakes cause and how can you avoid these problems? Well, what's going on here is the trucking industry still uses drum brakes as a majority of the brakes on these vehicles, even today. Now, some of the higher end trucks are going to disc brakes. That's true. But I just bought a brand spanking new truck, picked it up last night, it's got drum brakes on it. And when you drive a vehicle with drum brakes through a puddle of water, the brakes don't work very well. They get wet and they don't work very well. So the second part of this question, how do you avoid these problems? And the answer to that would be avoid puddles. Avoid driving through standing water. The first part of the question, what effects can the wet brakes cause? They could cause you to lose your braking power. So then the other question I would ask is, so what do you do if you do drive through a puddle and they get wet? Yep. So the answer to that is apply moderate brake pressure while driving forward. That will heat up the brakes and dry them out. Okay? Number 4, you should let air out of hot tires so the pressure goes back to normal. That's pretty stupid. Correct answer there is false. Number 5, you can safely remove the radiator cap as long as the engine isn't overheated. Again, false. Okay? So our next questions will probably be on the railroad crossing here. We just have to find it. All right. Did I miss one? Oh, okay, let's go back to 35 here. There we go. Thank you. So, what factors determine your selection of a safe speed when going down a long, steep downgrade? Well, so weight of the vehicle, weight of the load, steepness of the grade, length of the grade, and weather conditions. All of that. Okay. Number 2, why should you be in the proper gear before starting down the hill? Yep. See, if you start down the hill in the wrong gear, that means you're going too fast, and you probably will not be able to slow down adequately and downshift. And now you're in a world of hurt here. You've got to be at the proper speed and proper gear before you start down the hill. Number 3, describe the proper braking technique when going down a long, steep downgrade. So let me explain this. You're going to go down a steep grade. So the first thing you do at the top, before you start down, the first thing you do is slow down to the appropriate speed and downshift. Now the appropriate speed is, to start, is 5 mph less than any top speed that's posted. So a lot of these downgrades, they'll give you a top speed. It might be 25, it might be 35, it might be 45. Whatever that is, you start down 5 less than that and downshift, okay? Then you start down the hill. If you have an engine brake, engine retarder, Jake brake, whatever, use it before you use the brake pedal. Depending upon the grade, the engine brake may be sufficient to keep you at the desired speed. These engine brakes are adjustable. Many of them have low and high. Some of them have low, medium, and high. On my rig, I've got the 3-position adjustment, low, medium, and high. And so what that allows me to do as I go down the hill is that as the terrain changes like this, I can adjust how much engine brake I'm using. Now, if the engine brake is not sufficient to keep you at that 5 mph under, if the speed climbs the 5 mph to the top safe speed, then what you are to do at that point is use the brake pedal firmly enough so that within 3 seconds you can reduce by 5 mph. That's the formula. Use the brake pedal for 3 seconds, reducing by 5 mph. And I'll tell you this, 90% of the students that I've worked with over the years don't use the brake pedal hard enough to get that to happen, okay? I don't know, they're afraid to use the brake that hard. You gotta be assertive with the brake pedal on a grade, okay? Now, why not use the brake all the way down, just keep yourself at a steady speed? The brakes will overheat and fade and fail. You will lose your brakes doing that. So the whole logic of this is firm braking for 3 seconds, then release. Allows the brakes to cool. Then when necessary, 3 more seconds of brake application, release. 3 seconds of application, release. And that releasing of the brakes is to enable them to cool off and thus be able to maintain proper speed down the grade, okay? Number 4, what type of vehicles can get stuck on a railroad crossing? Low slung trailers, car haulers, boat haulers, that kind of thing. Number 5, how long does it take a typical tractor trailer unit to clear a double track? And the answer is 15 seconds, okay? All right, so we have a little time left, and what I'd like to do now is go to this practice test website, cdltest.co. You can get to that through our website, by the way. And I'm going to go down here and I'm going to do this Class A Part 1. And notice on the cdltest.co, there's the website. This first one here for Class A Part 1, it's going to have 100 questions. Now, I told you before that the 3 tests you have to take, general knowledge, air brakes, combinations. General knowledge is 50 questions, air brakes is 30, combinations is 20. So in other words, 100 questions. So that's what you're going to have to do in your test anyway. So, here, maybe I should do this. Question number 1 here. Having ABS brakes and only one axle still gives you more control over the vehicle during braking than a vehicle without ABS. That is true. Pressing and releasing the brake pedal unnecessarily can let air out faster than the compressor can replace it. That is true. It'll tell you whether you got the answer right or wrong. Empty trucks have the best braking. That is false. They're designed to carry weight, so when not carrying weight, they don't perform to their full potential. Number 4, name 2 causes of tire fires. All right, so underinflated tires and poor retreads. Underinflated will cause them, poor retreads, I don't think so. Second option, underinflated and duals that touch. That could cause a fire. Number 3, hot brakes and underinflated tires. That could cause a fire. Number 4, duals that touch and road debris. Well, road debris, unless you're driving through flaming, I don't know what, that's not going to cause it. So it's got to be either the second or the third one. And I struggle with this a little bit. The thing that is least likely to cause a fire would be the duals that touch. The 2 tires are touching each other, okay? So really the correct answer is hot brakes and underinflated tires. So that's the correct answer. No, it's not. So let's, okay, so they're saying it is the one with underinflated and duals that touch. So I'm going to disagree with them, but whatever. All trucks, tractors, and buses must be equipped with emergency brakes and parking brakes. True. All right, here's a good question. Where should your reflectors be placed when stopped on a divided highway? 20, 150, and 300, 10, 100, and 200, 15, 75, 150, or 30, 100, and 150? B is the correct answer. 10 feet, 100, and 200 feet. That is the correct answer. Okay. Here's that question we had a minute ago, right? What's the answer? False. Please like us on Facebook. No, don't do that. All right. What factors determine your selection of a safe speed when going down a long, steep downgrade? We had this question a minute ago, did we not? Yep, I'd say C. Now, if you don't know the answer to a question, you can experiment and do this. Try the first one, it'll tell you it's wrong. Then use your back button, go back and try the next one. It tells you you're wrong. Go back to the back button, go back and try it again. Now you have it correct, okay? Now, when you have a question that you find confusing, here's what I would suggest you do. Use your back button, go back and find that question. Find the correct answer to that question. And then do this. Take your phone and take a picture of that question. Now you have the perfect study guide. So now when you go to the exam station and you're preparing to go in to take your test, look through your manual, look through the highlighted sections that you have, but then take your phone and go to your little study guide. Oh, here's a question I was confused about. Okay, let's see. Factors determining selection of a, all right, total weight. Okay, that's right. And then look at any questions that you found confusing. I think that that is a fantastic way to assist you to study and find the answers that were incorrect, okay? So that you can go in and do your best at this test, all right? So if you don't know the answer, you can use the website to experiment back and forth, find the correct answer, okay? What is a pull-up? They're referring to when pulling forward while backing a trailer to reposition it, is the correct answer. When should you downshift automatic transmissions? Before going down the hill. We had that question just a minute ago when we were looking at the text, correct? One of my intentions here in showing you this website is to show you how accurate it is. This thing is very accurate to the manual we were just studying. Here's another one that we already have. How do you find out how many seconds of following distance space you have? Show the people in South St. Paul this question. None of the above?
No, the next one above that. It's a real math.
Okay. Well, which one's the correct answer?
Oh, it's the weight of the vehicle.
Correct. It's the top one. It is the top one. Right? We got it correct. Air compressor governor controls when the air compressor will pump air into the brake safety valves. False. It's pumping it into the air tanks. What is black ice? Now, talking to a bunch of Minnesotans, yeah, sure, you all know what black ice is for sure, you know. If I was down in Dallas, Texas, I'd have to explain it to y'all. But up here, we all know what black ice is. What is it? Correct. So it's the third one there. What things should you check during a trip? Exactly. We had this question, did we not? It was the second question that I showed you a little earlier. Gauges. They had mirrors, but then senses. Correct. Most important way to see the sides and rear? Mirrors. They are coming out with cameras, but right now it's still mirrors. What two things are most important to prevent a rollover? It would be the second one. Keeping the cargo as low to the ground as possible and driving slowly around turns. So that is the correct answer. What's the minimum number of tie downs on any flatbed load? 2. If you go twice as fast, your stopping distance will increase by how many times? 4 times. What can be done to prevent oil and water from building up in the air tanks? Well, let me ask you this about the alcohol evaporator. Will it prevent air or water from building up in the air system? Yes. Will it prevent oil from building up in the system? Nope. So the correct answer is not here, so it's none of the above. The correct answer would be to drain your air tanks. At least how often? Every day. End of every day, you're supposed to drain your air tanks, okay? Letting up on the brake pedal increases air pressure and releases the brakes. Now, I don't like questions like this because it does half of that. Half of that is true, but half of that is not true. Letting up on the brake pedal does release the brakes, but it doesn't increase air pressure. I don't like questions like that. Fill out our free CDL training information application today. Don't do that. You will get inundated with emails from trucking companies around the country. Fully loaded rigs are 10 times more likely to roll over in a crash than empty rigs. I'd say that's true. Okay. All right. How often should you drain your air tanks? What'd I tell you? Every day. What's the correct answer here then? None of the above. All right, there you go. That's my permit prep class. Any questions? Yes.
And on the website, has some other sections. General text.
Yep. Oh, sure. You know, I would recommend you start with the Class A one because that has the full 100 questions.
Well, that's why it was on that website. I think it says like air brakes, and air brakes new. Yeah, there's a new version and there's like a not new version.
I don't know. Play with it as much as you want.
I did too, and pretty much had each one had like different features, but also had some similar names.
Well, that's why I like the Class A one because that to me is the most similar to the real one with the state of Minnesota. Okay. All right, so for those of you that have been watching us back in South St. Paul, thanks for watching. I'm Bill Collins. Have a good day. More important, have a safe day.